This is your Strip Sports Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. It's Monday. So much to talk about. I think I mentioned this on the show a little bit later, but Timberwolves, Twins, Wild, certainly in the playoffs, Lynx, and Minnesota United all played this weekend. Extremely busy. I can't remember the last time 5 of what I consider these 6 major teams. Only the Vikings didn't play this weekend. That's a busy, busy weekend. I'll have Patrick Reusse on to talk about a lot of that stuff in just a little bit. First, what did I miss? Wild, the big story. And I've got Sarah McLellan coming on from Star Tribune, covers the team out in Vegas. She is going to join me right now. Happy to be joined at the outset right here on Daily Delivery by Sarah McLellan. She is out in Las Vegas, home of the Golden Knights, but not home ice advantage of the Golden Knights anymore, Sarah. Wild takes game 1-0 in overtime on Sunday. You were there, covered the game. Walk me through right off the bat your impressions of, a team that doesn't have a ton of postseason experience, how they were able to stay in the play and keep the game scoreless, and then, ultimately how things finished up. Let's start with how they came into this game.
You know what? I think that was probably pretty close to the game plan that the Wild drew up in how to stack up and match up against the Golden Knights. It just felt the longer that the game was 0-0, that it suited the Wild and that it obviously played to that team's strength versus Vegas. By the third period, it's still 0-0. Vegas is juggling its lines. It's looking for something. And the Wild is just going about its business, just rolling all 4 lines, no panic, no trying to mix things up, nothing to try to jolt it. I think that right there just kind of captures that was a game in a way that the Wild can have success in the postseason, against Vegas. And for Vegas, that looked like a team that, obviously was searching for answers and searching for a way to get a puck by Cam Talbot and, around what was a pretty sturdy defensive effort. So, obviously the Wild has to find a way to, on the flip side, to get more pucks in and around Marc-Andre Fleury and, 1 goal each game. It's going to be tough to continue to win that way. But I think overall, this was a game and a result that was huge for this lineup, huge for this series, obviously, like you said, to claim home ice. And, I think too, just, it just shows that if the Wild, sticks to its plan, sticks to the way it's built to play, you can have success, even against a team like Vegas that is obviously very competitive, a high scoring team with elite goaltending. So I think, that would have been a tough loss probably to stomach for the Wild after, how it persevered through the first period and found its legs and got better as the game went on. But obviously Eriksson Ek's overtime goal. Now they kind of obviously have a blueprint to build off of, for game 2.
You mentioned, the first period, and we'd even talked about that before we started the segment, how they maybe looked, if nerves were the right word, and maybe they even mentioned that a little bit in, some of their post-game comments. But, how much of, A, they had confidence because they had success against Vegas in the regular season, but B, when you have a veteran like Cam Talbot that kind of steadies you and keeps the game scoreless when maybe you haven't had your best period, how important is that?
Yeah, he set the tone, and it's, I think obviously Eriksson Ek gets a lot of the attention and accolades for scoring in overtime, but it stood up. It was the goal that mattered because of Talbot's play. And if the Wild doesn't get out of that first period scoreless, the result and outcome obviously could be very different. Talbot comes in, despite not maybe a lot of seasons in the postseason, taking teams to the playoffs. He has some pretty credible playoff experience in terms of, the runs he's gone on with Calgary, most recently in Edmonton. When he gets in the playoffs, he usually goes on a run. He gets past the first round. He gets a team, deep into the second round historically these last few times, like I said, that he's had the chance to be a starter in the playoffs. And he plays like this. He shuts teams down. I think, really the poise and the calm, that demeanor that we saw all season from him, this is where it shines. This is where it, kind of comes to a head and can steal the show. And It's not like it's different than how he plays in the regular season, but I just think it gets magnified more and you see the results. So, like I said, Eriksson Ek game-winning goal, his first career overtime goal. But Cam Talbot obviously was vital. And, I think just kind of continues to show why the Wild went out and acquired him.
Like you said, though, Eriksson Ek with the winning goal, kind of a quintessential goal. You wrote about that in your game story. Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Read that and all of her coverage. Chip Scoggins' column on the game as well in Monday's newspaper and on StarTribune.com. But turnover, forcing a turnover in Vegas's zone. Then just a good play along the wall, a centering pass, and kind of a shot that's not perfect. It goes off a skate, right? It deflects in off a skate, but that's how you win sometimes in overtime, and that's the kind of line. Not only that they've needed all year and getting this chemistry, but in overtime and in playoffs, it's not always going to be that finesse goal that wins a game for you.
I think it was a very validating finish for that line because obviously the Eriksson Ek line is this team's number one line. It's under the microscope in this series. Early on, you can kind of see maybe the Wild trying to play that matchup game, which is tough when you're the road team and you have, you don't get that last change. It looked like Vegas was trying to get, their fourth line, that Ryan Reeves line out there against Eriksson Ek, whereas, the Wild maybe wanted to go first line and match up Vegas's speed and skill with, a strong checking line in the Eriksson Ek line. So they kind of were challenged with, a lot of different, obviously lines in the game, the matchups, the penalty kill, obviously where Eriksson Ek, Greenway, and Marcus Foligno all play on. So, I think it was kind of a tough game for them to find their rhythm. It was tough for them early in the game to get in their forecheck, which is where they shine, which is obviously what led to the game-winning goal, that pressure on the Vegas defense. So I think that, having them deliver, we could maybe see that dovetail in the series that they were able to contribute that way because they're going to play a very important role as a shutdown line, but also as a line that can generate. Eriksson Ek, that was his 20th goal of the year. He is key to this offense. He is this team's undisputed number one center. So I think for that line, the role that it plays, it sets that physical tone as well. I think if there was any line, maybe that you wanted for the Wild, for them to see, okay, like contribute, get something going. Obviously the Kaprizov line, probably same can be said, but they had a lot of chances. But I think for the Eriksson Ek line, long-term in this series, that was a finish that probably makes them feel good about their game. And they're going to have to be locked in again in game two.
Last thing for you, like you said, got to be locked in on game two. Emotionally, where were they after the game, and then kind of how do they carry that into now? I mean, when you win an overtime in game one, it is an emotional high. How do you kind of channel that into game two and make sure you're not just happy to go home 1-1 because you've stolen a game?
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe. Hearing the players talk after the game, it looked like the celebration was on the ice. Like, we saw Eriksson Ek beaming. We saw Marcus Foligno jumping up and down, the players piling on and having this big celebration. That looked like, probably the most, visible celebration for the team, because when we talked to them after the game, it was businesslike. Like, I mean, you just looked at their faces. It didn't look like a team that just won in overtime necessarily, because it was very matter of fact. And having said that, though, that's kind of been the way this team has carried itself all year. Like, it just kind of felt like that's the tone, that's the demeanor, that's set. They know what they have to do. And like I said, they hung around a game that really played to probably the way they drew it up, like limit Vegas, limit the quality of chances. Yeah, they put 42 shots on net, but, Talbot handled all 42 of them and, a timely goal, even though there was plenty of chances before to score. So it felt very businesslike, which I think probably speaks to the experience, the leadership in the room, some of the players who have been here before, and Nick Bonino and Ian Cole, Stanley Cup champions. But I think it's also indicative of them recognizing the big picture. This is just one game. It's a 7-game series, best of 7. So, we'll see how they respond in game 2. But that stood out to me. It wasn't this joyous spillover of a celebration. It seemed very matter of fact and businesslike, which, maybe speaks to why the Wild is here. They've had that reset mentality, obviously, throughout the season.
Sarah McLellan, great stuff. Thanks for joining me here. We'll have you again on Tuesday's show as well to help set up Game 2 in Vegas. Appreciate it, and we'll catch you soon, okay?
Sounds good.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Joined right now by Patrick Reusse on Daily Delivery, a regular Monday occurrence. Not our foremost hockey expert at the Star Tribune, but Patrick, I'd like to ask you quick. Wild 1-0. That validates your hockey theory a little bit, does it not?
At least the goal didn't bounce off somebody's rear end in overtime to decide it. It was actually it was not a goal that ricocheted 4 or 5 times before it went in the net, but
just once off a skate. So yeah,
off a skate a little bit, but it's I think that Vegas is a good matchup for them because I saw Sarah's advanced piece about how their whole dedication in this playoff series was to become more explosive, score more goals. But, they're playing an opponent where you don't have to score as many goals as if you were to play Colorado, right? I mean, they are, you score 3 against these guys, you're going to beat them in the playoffs. You score 3 against Colorado, you'll probably be in overtime, right? So, or if you're lucky. So I think this is the opponent for them. Now they do have a much better goalie, Las Vegas, than Colorado does. So that also becomes the other factor. But it was the old survive the first period, right? You go out, you give up 19 shots, and you get out of that 0-0, and then the other team starts to say, "Oh, damn it, dang, we were supposed to be ahead 2-0," and then they're the favorites, and then the pucker factor gets involved, and the hockey playoffs are a complete crapshoot, and you can either like that or dislike that, depending on whether you want to see the best teams advance or not. But in this case, I think they're 2 pretty dang equal teams. So, and this is, I got to think that the Wild offensively, it's going to be a little easier for them to take chances and get things flying around a little bit now that they got the 1-0 lead, right? And once you win the road game, then you can loosen up a little in your style of play too. So it's good for them. It's I don't know, I think hockey more than any sport, at least for me, needs the crowd. Not to help the team, because it's incredible how many road teams now win in the hockey, but playoffs. But I think it needs the crowd to feel the idea that, this is really important. And, watching hockey watching most of this great season with very few people in the stands, and the excitement factor will build now after yesterday's win, but I don't think this team went into the playoffs with the same excitement factor it would have locally if it had been a regular season and the building was full and everybody was fully involved. But a win like that will get the whole Twin Cities pumped up again, or the whole Minnesota pumped up again. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think hockey, you're right. It's one of those sports where there is a certain energy to it. I think every sport, when you look at it, suffered in a certain way. I think we've talked about college basketball and college football. Just it felt weird not having any kind of that atmosphere there. But one more point about the game itself. I feel like, I don't know if it was necessarily underappreciated throughout the season, especially by people who watch this team. But man, the signing of Cam Talbot, reimagining that position for the Wild, for as much as they've struggled to score goals in the postseason, or even in the regular season, and that changed with Kaprizov getting here and some of these other guys emerging. But Talbot, obviously gets the shutout in that game. He's been rock solid pretty much all year at a position where they thought they were solid for a while, but they really weren't with Dubnyk these last couple of years.
No, that's true. There's no doubt about that. And I guess that what I was saying was, for me, being at a hockey game and I was only over there about 3 times this year, but to being in a hockey game in an empty arena just is it's hard to get into it. To me, and the fact that we're going to have people again. How many are we letting in next week?
I can't remember. It's kind of a moving target now. I don't know what the moving target is with the new guidance. I'll check that.
Indoors is a little different, right?
It is, but I don't know if it's changed a whole. I don't know if we're much more beyond what we were in the regular season. I think they're trying. Maybe by the second round, if they got that far, it would be even more. But their first home game in the playoffs will be Thursday night.
What we had yesterday is one team figuring out how to win and another figuring out how to lose, and the other one is the Wild have become experts at figuring out ways to win, and the Twins have become early season experts through what's almost 25% of the season. That was one of their most inventive losses yesterday. I was there yesterday. That was. Rortvedt, the kid catcher who looks really good defensively and isn't worth a damn as a hitter. There's a guy standing on third base, and instead of running Andrus all the way back to third, he without throwing the ball, he throws the ball, and then Andrus, crafty old son of a gun that he is, falls down like a Duke basketball player, and they get the run out of there, and that just took the life out of everybody in that team. And but man, they have some serious issues. When Maeda's pitching like that, they have some serious issues, man, alive.
Yeah, I jotted that down. I mean, they get the big, Sano finally makes contact, hits the 3-run homer Saturday. So you're like, okay, if any kind of game is going to be a launching point for any kind of, okay, let's rally around this, turn this thing around. Maybe that's the kind of game you do it. An unexpected win, a pop fly home run, basically just right over the flowers. You win 5-4, and then you get up 4-1 right away.
Yeah, you're playing really good. To get to 4-1, they're playing really good. And Maeda comes out for the 5th, and bang, 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 just 3 line drives. And, they just supposedly, what they say today, he's got a bad leg or something. He's got something wrong with him, and not his arm, but his leg. But it looked like his arm to me, because most of his fastballs were 89 yesterday too. I mean, he's not a hard thrower, but that was a devoted, disciplined effort to get beat. And then they tie it and give the run at Donaldson, who I really like as a third baseman generally, but he has been kicking it around way too much,
especially in the clutch. Like that's the second game where he's given one back in the clutch time.
And he also got him started another little roller at third that he does not make the play on that the roller. He makes it left and he makes it right, but that was a hard effort, and they're just, I don't know, it's hard to see any solution to this. It really is. And then Sergio comes in, walks the first guy, gets behind the next guy, and ends up getting 4 or 5 straight outs. And Sano waves at 2 of those 75-mile-an-hour slide balls of his, and poor Larney kid had no chance against him because he couldn't swing slow enough.
Right.
And it's just it ain't the year. It's not the year, man. Sometimes it's your year, sometimes it's not, and it's not. They just figure out ways to get beat, and they're buried now, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's look at Oakland now. They lost their first 6, 7 of their first 8. This was the worst Oakland team in the history of in the last 20 years. And then they won 13 in a row.
Yeah, I know it.
But you watch them yesterday. They got professional hitters.
Yeah.
They Maeda, okay. They're just sitting back, waiting for Maeda's slop to come up there and hitting it to right field, hitting it. They're taking the ball anywhere they want it to. Basically, they got professional hitters, and this team doesn't. So it's, there's just a lot of ways. Now, one thing, Kepler has looked like a live body the last couple of days, and Polanco's looked good for a week. So
Yep.
It's not. Hitting wise, it's not as hopeless as it was, but it's still not good. And I don't know if Larnach's ready. And it's just, and Sano. I love Sano saying he knew that was a home run to the right field to win the game. The quotes were, "Yeah, he knew it was out." Why'd he stand there at home plate like he thought? He didn't come running out of the box like some guy, or waddling out of the box like some guy. But it's a sunk. It's not a sinking ship. It's a sunken ship, I think.
Yeah, it feels that way. If at the start of the year it seemed like this was a team that didn't have a glaring weakness, I guess, because you looked at it, you're like, the hitting should be, okay. The pitching should hold up. The defense should be improved. But what that's kind of proven to be as the year went on is a team that doesn't really have a core identity, and it's become a team that's found a lot of different ways to lose instead of a lot of different ways to win. Some days it's the hitting, some days it's the starting pitching. A lot of times it's been the bullpen. Sometimes it's the defense. And it's like when you can't count on something to be excellent, there's a lot of different ways to be let down. And they've certainly, unlike the Wild, like you said at the start of this segment on the Twins, it's, one team has pushed all the right buttons this year, and that everything the Twins seem to try just doesn't work. That's 2 games in a row where they've given Mate a 3-run lead. They gave one in that White Sox game too. And if you can't hold a 3-0 lead, a 3-run lead with your best, who's your best pitcher, that's tough.
He and Barrios are not going to be a 1-2 that would be competitive in the American League. You got no chance if they're both going to pitch like they pitch. Right. You have no chance. Now, I want to report in. I did see a doubleheader in Woodbury before I went to the Twins game. I saw the 10-year-old, 11-year-old boys team, traveling team in Woodbury, and then I saw the 12-year-old girls fast pitch, I guess, but it's not real fast, softball game. But the boys game, I want to tell you that the fame of certain members of the Twins is such. This one kid who happens to be the neighbor of my grandson made this diving catch out in center field for an 11-year-old kid. Pretty dang good, right? 10, 11-year-old kid. It was a great catch. So he came back and he running by me, and I said, "Hey, Colin, you look like Byron Buxton on that catch." And I said, "Except you didn't get hurt." And the kid got a laugh out of it. So even the 11-year-old kids know that Byron can't make a catch without getting hurt. And I got to tell you another thing.
Okay.
12-year-old girls softball.
Yep.
I think the score was 21-14.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Nice. Like an old college World Series.
Yeah. But it was, the ball, when the ball's in play, she gets thrown around a little bit, right?
Yep.
We have to convince the young ladies to hold it. Don't be tossing it around. But here's the deal. When we get to they went to extra innings. They were 11-11. And then my granddaughter's team scored 10 runs in the top of the 7th. Not by mashing the ball, by the way.
Okay.
But we put a runner on second to start the 7th.
Oh, okay.
In girls softball, a lack of base runners is not an issue at that level. We don't need a runner on second.
The free runner was one of the 10 that scored.
I had a very hard time, and some of the parents looked at me like I was insane when I was, "What is this? What is this?" Rob Manfred, I hope he's proud of himself. In a 12-year-old girls softball, we're now putting running second to break a tie in a 21-14 game.
That's hilarious. That's great.
I'm very upset about that. Yes,
well,
I think it put me in a bad mood for the entire day.
Well, doesn't take much. Well, I want to ask you. We got to talk. All 5 of what I consider the 6 major pro teams in this town played Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Wolves ended their season Sunday. Now, I know we've talked Wolves a little bit on these segments. We've got a few minutes left here, but what I have a problem with is people who are just saying the second half of the season is really the only one that kind of counts, because they kind of figured this out under Finch. They went 16-20. They went 13-11 when both Towns and Russell played. You know what? I get it. I think this is an encouraging. I think the way they're playing is encouraging for sure. And the way I think, especially Edwards, the second half of the year he had, that's absolutely meaningful. But the second half of an NBA season gets weird, especially this year where teams are resting guys. You don't know who's trying to win because they're trying to, get the certain seed in the playoffs. You see the Clippers lost last night because they don't want to ever see the Lakers in the playoffs. They lost to like Oklahoma City, who had no intentions of ever winning that game. So let's just hold on. Yeah. This is a team that's improving, but they got a lot of work to do before we're going to say this is a team that's on the path to the playoffs still.
And when they get an opponent that's truly involved, right, they still can give up 130 with the best of them, and they still can't. They still can't guard anybody. I mean, they're trying to win the game in the fourth quarter. They might guard somebody, but really throughout most of the game, they don't. I think that strictly because of Edwards, there's something going on here.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
Strictly because of Edwards, but not, that Rosas can come out and tell us that he's built a nucleus now. I don't know about that. I don't know. Do we have the third player yet? I don't like Russell. I like Russell as a sixth man coming in and being the, Vinnie Johnston from way back when, the instant offense, but I don't like him. As I think he's he still doesn't give you any defense. He's not a playmaker. He can be at times, but I don't know. I think there's something going on, but it's not. If they go into next season with this same group, are we going to have a 10-team playoff again next year?
I don't know. We talked about that last week. I kind of like it. It's funny too, because I saw that the pairings for the play-in came out, and it felt like it had a very junior varsity and varsity feel to it in both conferences. Charlotte and Charlotte and Indiana, and then Washington, Boston, and then it's San Antonio, Memphis, and then Golden State, Lakers.
Yeah. Let me say that I don't see them as a top 8 team if they go into next year in the same condition they are now. Whether they could be a top 10 team if the NBA keeps up with this fraudulent system that they have. But are we calling those playoff teams now, or do you have to be one of the two? You have to be one of the two that advance through the qualifying round, or
no?
Whatever.
You have they've made a very big distinction. This is the play-in tournament, and then the top 8 is the playoffs.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't see them as a playoff team right now. Do you?
No, not as currently constructed. They got a lot of off-season work still to do, I guess is the point I was making.
Yeah. There is what do you do with a Kogi? Rubio will be back, I wouldn't imagine. What do you do with some of these guys who get some minutes? But there's, it's tolerable to watch now. It isn't absolutely pathetic, but it's not like, you're going to have a team that's going to make a run at least to the second round. Let's say you make a run at least to the second round of your competition for interest. Now, hockey and basketball crowds are obviously different, but your competition for interest is the team across the way that already has twice as much interest in you by the time, and you're not going to get a draft choice that amounts to much. By the time this spring and summer gets over, you're going to be so far behind them as far as people wanting to buy tickets. It can be incredible. Yep. And so they're in trouble. I really restaurants, houses, everybody's just spending money like drunken sailors. It's unbelievable.
we didn't have anything to spend it on for a year. We're all just like, take my money, take my money.
Well, you're so used to the last, when the restaurants open up a little bit, you were used to wandering into these empty places and they greet you like you were the Shah coming to town, and now you can't get a table. What the hell's going on? It's really weird. It's but hey, go ahead, spend it. What good does it do you? As I always say, I want to die even.
That's a perfect place to end this segment,
that's
Patrick.
What my old man did. My old man died even. And,
so what you got to do? Yeah, don't spend all of it except just enough.
Die even.
Die even. All right, sir. Thanks, Patrick. Bye.
Yep.
Let's end things with the cooler. Patrick, Reusse, and I didn't get to Minnesota United or the Lynx because we ran out of time. We had so much that we were talking about, had that important youth sports discussion that we had to get to as well. United gets a big win, stoppage time goal, 1-0. That's 2 in a row for them. Maybe that's the start of something after 4 losses in a row. Don't want to draw too many conclusions, drew too many conclusions off the Twins win Saturday. Thought maybe that was the start of something. They found a new way to lose Sunday. But, encouraging sign that United's won 2 in a row now after dropping their first 4. Lynx lose their opener by 2, 77-75. Some good things in that game, and remember, Nafisha Collier not playing in that game, probably their best player, MVP candidate last season. So that season should get better as it goes along. So can't be too disappointed. 2-point loss to Phoenix. We'll see how they do as they round into shape more the rest of the season with a full complement of players on their roster. They play again Tuesday night. Thanks for joining me today. Have a bunch of good stuff coming up later in the week. Probably do a Wolves end of season show at some point here. Lots of Wild talk. Sarah McLellan will be on Tuesday's show as well to break down they kind of get you ready for the start of Game 2 on Tuesday at Vegas. Big chance for the Wild to go up big in that playoff series. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Michael Rand. Download this podcast, subscribe if you will, write a review if you have a chance, and we will see you again on Tuesday.